My full name, if you don't know, is Justin Souza Verissimo. Before my parents had children, they agreed that my dad would name the girls and my mother would name the boys. Soon after they got married, my mother was pregnant with my older brother. She decided on the name Austin, and 3 years later, when she was pregnant with me, she changed the first letter and named me Justin. I cannot begin to explain how or why my mother chose the name Justin. It was not a family name, nor did it honor my Portuguese or Brazilian heritage. At least that's the way I saw it when I was younger. However, I believe my mother was trying to crack into American culture, being that they are both immigrants to this country. I guess they figured it would be easier to acclimate with a name like Justin. I mean, look at how many great Justins there are in this world. We've got Bieber, Timberlake, Justin Verlander, etc. In my opinion, it's not really the best name in the world, but earns a solid 7 out of 10. Oh, shit. Before Brooks, I went to school with a lot of Brazilians, and they loved going by their mother's maiden name. My best friend, Pedro, went by his mom's maiden name, Brandão, and I thought it was cool and tough. Similarly, I tried to do the same. Mine is Souza. Long story short, didn't work. Anyways, Souza is a common Brazilian last name. My parents decided to make it my siblings and my middle name. Perhaps it was the grand occasion, that is childbirth, that caused the mistake, but my brother, sister, and I all somehow ended up with different middle names. It took my father 3 tries to get it right, and as a result, my younger sister is the only one with the intended middle name. One place where my parents did not make a mistake was in my last name, Verissimo. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Verissimo means the truest in Italian, but there are no Italians in my family. The Verissimos are Portuguese. I can trace the Verissimo name to a tiny village in the center of Portugal called Canais, where my grandmother still lives today. In that tiny village, Verissimo holds a distinct reputation for honor and hard work. I can't say I hold that to be true all the time, being that senior spring has a way of making staying true to those values very difficult. And on that note, I would like to apologize to all my teachers that I've had this spring. As I reflected on my given names, I began to think about nicknames. I always thought they were cool, especially the criminals like El Chapo and rappers like Yeezy, Weezy, and Drizzy. All my middle school self ever wanted was a sick nickname. The first one I can think of was one my grandmother used to call me, Neguinho de Vovó. It's in Portuguese and translates to Grandma's Brown Boy. I have something of a tricky past with my mom's side of the family. I never really shared much about it, to be honest. But thinking back to my memories of my mom and her side of the family, I can't help but think about those walks to the park to play soccer when I was a toddler. And I guess call them pranks, shenanigans. Anyways, the shenanigans my brother and I used to pull on them were kind of awful. For example, when I was younger, I thought it was hilarious to throw bugs at them and watch them scream and run in terror. It was amusing to me. I was twisted. That class act earned me another nickname, Menino dos Matos, which means something like the kid from the wild. Both cool nicknames, but not quite what I was going for. For elementary and middle school, I went to Ann Street School. This was your typical kindergarten through 8th grade school located in the heart of Newark, New Jersey. Ann Street was and still is one big, ugly brick building, enclosed by scaffolding and a huge parking lot that we called the playground. The school holds a special place in my heart. My relationship with the school has been something of a love-hate kind of thing. I hated walking up the 6 flights of stairs every morning during middle school to cram into a room with 30 other kids just to get yelled at by the teacher for 7 hours. I hated the outdated textbooks that put me to sleep. But the thing I hated the most was getting detention every other week in 6th grade. It was the worst hour after school on Fridays. However, my friends seemed to get just as many detentions as I did, and so when it was time to walk home, I had a clique of 4 to 5 people to walk with. On a walk home from detention, I thought about my name and compared Justin to the names of my friends. They all had names that correlated to their heritage. Jose, Andres, Manuel, Pedro, etc. But I had a name that was just too American. It was weird to me. However, Justin was the most common name in my grade with 4 people. So in school, nicknames were necessary, which was a good thing. I was known as Justin V, J, Verissimo, JV, Jus, and my favorite one, Justin, number 3. The different names followed me to the soccer field and basketball courts. On the field, my teammates simply shouted Verissimo when they wanted the ball, but my coach, the biggest hothead I have ever known, attempted to call me Justin. However, his accent and inability to speak English led him to call me Josh or Jason. I never knew when he was talking to me, and so that was a big issue. And at the first soccer practice, my coach spent the entire time yelling at some kid named Josh and Jason. In my head, I thought, man, those kids suck. Come to find out, there was no Josh and no Jason. He was yelling at me. But joke's on him, because I made that team, and I made the Brooks team. Looking at my Brazilian heritage and the legendary soccer players from Brazil, such as Ronaldinho, Jairzinho, and Rivelinho, Dusty calls me Justinho. When Dusty first called me this, I thought, geez, you have a sick and twisted sense of humor, as I headed to JV practice my freshman year. However, as time wore on and I rose up in the ranks, and as Brooks became a dominant force in soccer, as you guys already know, I grew to like the name. It fills me with pride when Dusty and my teammates call me Justinho. Last year, I went on exchange to Morocco. I loved my time in Morocco. From having my ear swell up to the point where I looked like Dumbo the elephant because I got bit by a bug, and to going for smoothies at midnight. However, not everything was smooth sailing. The first day I got to Morocco, my host family showed me the room I'd be sharing with my host brother. I put my bags down and took a nap. When I woke up, Zaid, my host brother, was standing there in boxers and a white tank top and wearing boxing gloves, taking punches at the air. He looked at me and said, "J Boogie, what's up, my guy?" Immediately, I thought, oh boy, so this is how it's going to be. However, things quickly turned around as we wandered the streets of Tangier that night. He called me J Boogie for the rest of my time there as well, and I loved it. I mentioned the basketball courts earlier. I never played on a team and can make a massive 1 out of 10 layups I attempt. To further explain how bad I am, on the first day of school while I was on exchange to Morocco, I rolled my ankle pretty badly and had to be helped off by the girls me and Sebastian were playing that day. But my best friend, Andres, liked to play ball, so that meant I had to play ball. If you've ever played pickup basketball, you understand the use of nicknames, and attempting to know the actual names is futile. My friend Andres went by Thailand, which was a clear, possibly racist name based on his appearance. He's 100% Ecuadorian, but he has a tan and slight squint, so I guess that misled the other players. Now, I don't know how I got this name, but on the courts of Newark, I was known as Juicy. Thailand and Juicy were like Pippen and Jordan, in the sense we terrorized those courts, let me tell you. In the words of LeVar Ball, I'm undefeated, never los. Juicy is definitely one of the most interesting things I've ever been called, but sadly, it never stuck. However, feel free to bring it back for this last 12 days. While writing about nicknames, I got to thinking about how it could relate to Brooks, and I remembered the perfect story. Please allow me to paint the picture. Freshman year, I was in Peabody, and Mr. Price was my dorm parent, and it was his first year too. My dorm mates and I were in the common room one night while Mr. Price was on duty. They were talking about how some girls in Mrs. Nam's dorm call her Mama Nam. Personally, I thought that was a tad weird and didn't want any parts in it. But I guess some of my dorm mates thought that we needed something similar. So the creative juggernauts of Peabody created the male equivalent to Mama Nom, Daddy Dave. Yikes. I never got a clear answer from Mr. Price, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to be called that. I call attention to the use of nicknames because this is a polarizing time where everything seems to need to be politically correct. The fact of the matter is, what we call people holds a high level of importance. Personally, I never understood why labels are so important. The way I see it, you live your life, do the things you want to do, and if people want to call you names, just embrace it or ignore it. Perhaps the constant abuse from my older brother toughened me up. To me, these things feel so trivial. But I suppose since I'm not really affected, I can't really speak. I don't have much to speak on. The point is that you can't control how other people are going to react or what they're going to do or say. However, you can control how you react and what you do. So, thank you.